this is how God
On the way up, this
praise you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, because you have hidden these things from the wise and the learned, and revealed them to little children. Yes, Father.
Hi everyone, it's good to have you here on this Bible Talk. I'm Charlotte and I will be doing this week's Bible Talk. So we've, over the last sort of month or two, been looking at high view, and today I'm going to sort of share my thoughts on a high view of others. Now you might be thinking, what is this sort of thing? And I think all of us will have a different sort of perspective on this and different ideas, but for me it's about putting other people sometimes before ourselves. I think it's very easy to get wrapped up in our own lives and to sort of forget about the world around us. But today I'm going to chat about a story from the Bible about Ruth, Naomi and Boaz and their journey and their story, and sort of how that can show us how we put others before ourselves and can take care of others. So having a high view of others, valuing others, other people around us and others' lives. So in this story, I'm not sure who it's written by actually, but it's about Ruth, Naomi and Boaz, as I said a few minutes ago. Now the story begins with Naomi and her sort of husband and two sons. The two sons get married, a very happy occasion, as the weddings always are, but there's a famine where they're living. So sort of as the story progresses, very early on in the first section, Naomi's husband and the two sons die. So that leaves Naomi, Ruth and the other daughter-in-law, whose name is Orpah. So they're in a bit of a tricky situation. There's a famine. Obviously this is back when the Bible was written, so we're talking thousands of years ago. So the world is very different than today. Women weren't valued as highly as they are now in most countries. So Naomi tells her daughters-in-law, Orpah and Ruth, to go and find a new husband, go and make a new life for yourself. This one hasn't worked out. You're free to leave, it's fine. Go and find new husbands. They can take care of you and you can have a happy life. After a bit of pondering and discussion, Orpah does do that. She leaves Naomi and Ruth, but Ruth makes a choice here. Now we're not completely sure, we don't get to hear about their feelings in the story. It's more just sort of the facts and the more factual base and the decisions that are made rather than the emotions around it. But I wonder if here Ruth recognises that she has an opportunity to show that high view of others and put Naomi before herself. Ruth says to Naomi, "Your people will be my people and your God my God. Where you die, I will die. And there I will be buried." So here she's committing herself to Naomi to say, look, I'm going to keep journeying this life with you, keep going with you. Now Naomi and Ruth, they make the decision to journey to Bethlehem, which was in a different part of the country, and they travelled there because there was harvest. So where they were currently there was famine, in this Bethlehem there was harvest, there was plenty of food. And eventually when they arrived there, settled, Ruth heads out to the fields to collect some barley. Now back then, people were allowed to go and collect leftover barley from the fields after it had been harvested. And while she's there, Ruth's collecting the barley ready to take back for Naomi, so they have something at least to help make food and stuff. There's someone called Boaz, and he sort of notices Ruth, and they get talking, and he sees that they're in a bit of trouble, her and Naomi, and he says, go again, go and pick some more, pick the better stuff, and ends up with Ruth taking home 13 kilograms of barley, which I would imagine is quite a lot to carry. Now it's around this point where Ruth tells Naomi what's happened, and Naomi realises that actually Boaz is a family member, and he's related to her late husband, Naomi's late husband, who died. And obviously Naomi and Ruth still in a bit of a difficult situation, two women on their own. It's not as easy to be a woman as a man, and Naomi encourages Ruth to go and find a husband to ask Boaz, because back in the day that this story was told, in a family, if women were left, no husband, were in a difficult situation, another family member would in effect marry them to take them on, to care for them. So Naomi encourages Ruth to sort of get her best dress on, put a perfume on, and go and find Boaz. Now Ruth finds Boaz asleep. They've sort of been celebrating the harvest, and Boaz is asleep in the middle of the night. He wakes up, and it so happens that Ruth has slept at the bottom of his feet. Now it's quite key here to think about this, because she's sort of saying to Boaz, by sleeping at his feet, I'm here to be your servant. I'm here to serve you. And at this point, Boaz obviously has woken up and is thinking, why is this woman at my feet? Doesn't recognise Ruth to start off with. But he eventually recognises Ruth, and Ruth asks him to be their guardian redeemer, their one in the family that will look after her, because he's the nearest legal sort of family member that her and Naomi have. Now, just a few points to pick out here, that Naomi has asked Ruth to go and do this. So Naomi's taken her on as part of, almost as a daughter. She's given her the opportunity to go and find a husband, but she decided to take her on as a daughter. Now that's, we know that Ruth's already committed herself to Naomi when she said, your people were my people, I will go where you go, I'll die where you die. But at this point, Naomi's almost returning that as well. She's accepted that commitment from Ruth, that they're gonna, have that commitment between each other, and she sort of said, look, you can be almost my daughter in this situation. You can still be part of the family, and there's an opportunity again for you to have a better life, to go and be provided for. Now, before Ruth and Boaz get married, Boaz realises that there's actually another family member who is sort of closer, sort of has a closer link with the family, is sort of not quite as closely related as him. And he goes and finds this other guy and says, look, this is the situation, you're actually the next closest, not me. You're the person who's closer to Naomi and her husband than I am. But just watch out, there are these, this is what's going on. You've got Ruth to look after, then there'll be also Naomi to look after, but there will be land from Naomi's late husband. Now this guy doesn't actually want to take on that responsibility. I think he realises that the land that Naomi's husband used to have would actually affect his own, and that it would almost be too much to take on. So he says, no, I don't want to take that on. So which means that Boaz can. So Boaz then goes back and says, yeah, I can marry Ruth, that's not a problem, and they do. They marry, so you think happily ever after, which is great, isn't it? But I think the whole way through this story, we see people putting other people before themselves, having a higher view of others, having a high view of others. So Ruth commits herself to Naomi at the start, and then Naomi respects that commitment and equally does the same and commits herself to Ruth, and they go and she sort of helps her provide food for them, and gets to see that she's settled and married, which in that day was important for a woman to have security that way. And in fact, Naomi actually says to this, to Ruth, my daughter, I must find a home for you where you will be provided for. Naomi's doing all that she can to make sure that Ruth is cared for and looked after. And equally, Boaz does the same to Ruth. It gives her more than she could imagine. At the field, gives her 13 kilograms of barley, and realises that at any point, I think it's good that we realise that he could have actually got out of this. He could have just passed it on and said, no, someone closer related to you than I am, so you go and sort that out between yourselves. I cannot take you on. I cannot look after you. And therefore, by accepting, Ruth, when he accepts Ruth's proposal for marriage, he's also taking on Naomi. But yeah, I think this is a great example. We find three people who could have different options, different points in their lives, and turn around and said, no, it's okay, I'm going to look after myself, you go and look after yourself, and we'll just hope for the best. But throughout it, we see that they put other people before themselves by putting themselves in difficult situations, making sacrifices for one another. So this kind of makes me think about, what about now? How does this affect us now? I think today it's quite easy to put ourselves before others, to think about me and my own world and not realise what others are going through. at our recent family breakfast over in Eckington, we did harvest. I know this has happened in Dronfield too, and we've made collections for food bank, and that's local to us. And I think even just things like that, by buying simple things like pasta or an extra packet of rice and those things and giving them to a food bank, can actually have a massive impact on families that are in need and others that are in need. And again, that's about thinking above us, others, putting others before ourselves. It might be a couple of pounds on your shopping bill, or just a few, like 30 pence or however much rice and pasta are these days. But it's those little things, isn't it, that can slowly make us realise there's others around us. There's more past ourselves almost. And they don't have to be big things, like I've said, just buying a little bit extra, which for many of us probably won't make too much of a difference. For some it might, which again is okay, but it could be other things like picking up a receipt for someone, or giving that little smile at a struggling mother in the supermarket who's got a toddler screaming, just going, it's okay, if you've been there too, just going, I've been there too, it's fine. And so it's not necessarily spending money, it's our time as well, isn't it? It's making sure we have time for others. It might be a slight few minute inconvenience, but a few minutes, I'm sure, if people can hopefully forgive if you're running late, all those sort of things. And I think it's good because it takes having a high view of others, valuing others, just as we hopefully view ourselves, and can actually open our eyes to the world around us and to hopefully God's heart for the world around us too. I think as we do this, as we're trying to make sure that we're putting others before ourselves, sometimes that God can show us his heart for a world that as we're all aware isn't functioning as well as it could. So I would hope that today that's given you a bit of food for thought, and that you can reflect on this, and by all means go and read the story for yourself. There's a fantastic podcast if you're into those sort of things called The Bible in 30 Minutes. Hopefully I've got that right. And it basically takes each sort of book in the Bible and go for half an hour, just chats it through, and the guys who do this do a really great job on this story of Ruth, and it's half an hour, so whether you're driving the car or doing a bit of washing or gardening or whatever, it's a great little bit of time that you can spend actually hearing more about it. And of course you can read it in the Bible for yourself as well. It's only 4 chapters. I think they reckon it takes about 15 minutes to read through, 20 minutes. So it's a great little story and has so much in it, I think, that we can learn. So yeah, I hope you all have a great week and get to chat about this with your friends, and I'm sure you'll hear more about it on the Oaks Online episode.